Here to introduce today's keynote speaker is CABE Board Region 5 Representative, Dr. Sara Cepeda.
Good morning. I am thrilled today to introduce our keynote speaker, an amazing Mexican-American young woman, Christina Díaz Hernández. Christina is a flight systems engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, where she has contributed to the development and the testing of the Mars Perseverance rover. She grew up in Los Angeles, where she developed a passion for space after exploring Saturn in the library. Christina attended the California Academy of Mathematics and Science, participated in STEM programs, and joined the school's robotics team. She earned her degrees in aerospace engineering from California Polytechnic State University. Christina began her career at JPL in 2013 and is now a systems engineer lead on the Sample Return Lander for Mars Sample Return. Her past work on the Mars Perseverance rover as a payload systems engineer enabled her to contribute to the development, testing, and operations of 3 of the rover's 7 science instruments: MEDA, weather station, RIMFAX, radar, and PIXL, X-ray spectrometer. Beyond her technical achievements, Christina is a passionate advocate for Latinas in STEM. In 2012, she was honored with a STEM award from the Hispanic Heritage Foundation for her significant contributions to the Mars Perseverance mission. Please join me in a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Christina Díaz Hernández.
All right, hi. So before we dive in, I'll admit something. I never fully understood until 10 years ago the true power of multilingualism and culture in education. It's a tough thing to admit, but growing up, I felt that success came from joining in the mainstream culture that surrounded me. I felt embarrassed about my Mexican heritage and anything associated with it. In my earlier academic journey, that history felt like a mere footnote, or worse, non-existent. Did that mean that I was a footnote? As a child, I didn't know that there was a system that was pushing my culture into the margins. But looking back, I can see how much of my early education was shaped by these biases. And yet today, there is an ongoing push for change. Who else has seen that shift in their own lives? Now I know it's much more than languages. It's about appreciating and celebrating cultures and embracing our true, authentic selves. It took me a long time to understand that. And honestly, I never realized that as an engineer, I'd get the chance to help and course correct that for future generations. Thank you, CABE, and my tia Maria, the deputy director, for inviting me and for creating a space where I can share my story and how education shaped me. Please give their relentless hard work a round of applause. Oops, there you go. I'm currently one of the engineers who's working on a potential mission to retrieve samples left on Mars. Samples that will help understand the possibility of ancient life on Mars. It'll also help unlock Mars' geologic history and bring generations of research of new scientific discovery. I've worked on several robotic space exploration missions, like Perseverance, as mentioned. And Perseverance is a phenomenal engineering feat. She has a personality of her own, as we learned as we built her up. And at work, we often talk about our robots as if they're people. We joke that they're out there in space, struggling through the daily grind to complete their missions, dealing with their Earth operators, humans, and learning from their mistakes and making game-changing discoveries every day on Mars. I never thought that I'd relate so much to a one-ton robot battling Martian dust storms and rocky terrain, but there's a surprising amount we have in common. Like our rovers, we all have mission objectives, starting points, and destination points. And along the way, we add tool belts to our kit of skills, experiences, and support systems that help us achieve our mission. For me, those tools were the confidence I built for asking for help. Tools that I continue to add as I explore the solar system. Apologies. Another way, rovers are pathfinders and are educators, paving the way for future missions. Through them and their predecessors, we continually lean and grow in our curiosity about the world around us, embarking on new missions to expand our understanding of the universe. Before I was working on Mars missions, I was just a kid trying to figure things out. And like so many of us, it started with my parents and the community around me. They taught me the importance of learning and pushing through tough times. It's where my love of education began, so let me share a little bit about those early days. This is me at 7, 8 years old, showing my mom the most silence, "you're embarrassing me" face. Growing up in Gardena and Long Beach, my parents worked full-time, went to school full-time, and still managed to make time for me. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, eating dinner, while my dad worked on his calculus problems and tinkered with projects. I remember this very library in Long Beach where I dove into books about ancient Egyptian pyramids to the spine-chilling world of Goosebumps. If you know, you know. Though we couldn't afford expensive space camps or European vacations like some of my friends, I traveled the world through books and imagined chasing tornadoes or exploring the oceans. My parents' focus on education above all else was instrumental in cementing in the foundation that led me to become a lifetime learner at an early age. My dad would take me to work in East LA to fix all kinds of gadgets and gizmos as a technician. My mom would take me to museums from everything to Diego Rivera to LA La Brea tar pits. I think she still remembers when I showed off all the names of the clouds that I had learned in school. Cirrus, the one that looked like a horse mane across the blue sky. Or my favorite, cumulonimbus, the one that brought stormy weather and tornadoes. What I didn't know then was that this love of learning was nurtured by my parents who shaped who I am today. I was fortunate that they invested in my academic journey. Parents and caregivers are our first educators. They start the process in showing us the value of having a questioning spirit. Those library visits, with their musty books and quiet corners, became the gateways that transformed my world. It was at this library that I found a book that changed everything. It was filled with mesmerizing photos, and I remember turning the page, and it looked something like this. Suddenly, my world got bigger when I saw Saturn's immense beauty and incomprehensible size against the darkness of space. My eyes opened in absolute wonder. It's a memory that brings me back to the smell of that library, the fingerprints on the plastic book covers, and the dog-eared pages of the book, and the thought of wondering, who took such a beautiful picture? The book sitting quietly on the bookshelf, so unassuming, was my starting point. It was so unassuming, we sometimes take books for granted, but it represented knowledge that was only available to me through the public education resources that my mother and father worked so hard to ensure that I had access to. And that many of you here today advocate for your communities, your schools, your programs, your institutions. You understand the power that that exposure and access brings into changing the courseway of your students. That curiosity only grew when I hit high school. I find myself looking for places that could help me dig deeper. And I ended up at a high school that really believed in giving students from all backgrounds the tools to succeed. It was where I first realized that education could take me to places I never imagined. I attended a school that believed in giving students from all backgrounds access to tough subjects: college physics, robotics, organic history, things that seemed impossible but achievable through the mission and dedication to remove barriers. Over 2/3 of our students came from inner city schools. Many of them were low-income families or came from non-English speaking homes. Yet nearly 95% of us went to 4-year universities, and the rest went to a community college. That was a game changer. This school wasn't just about grades. It was about creating a system where education was for everyone, no matter where you came from. Many of my friends were the first in their families to graduate high school and college. Can we just sit with that? It was an absolute disruption of a system that would have been dismissed when the educational needs and opportunities of these students was missed. It was in this environment that I found myself surrounded by students who came from similar backgrounds. I didn't quite belong, but I knew that this was my culture. My friends would lovingly tease me, the surfing flaca. It was fine, I embraced it, but I still felt left out. I couldn't speak Spanish that well. It was the feeling of being ni de aquí ni de allá. But I knew I already had a tool in my toolkit to help me. What did I do? I read. I educated myself. I looked for belonging and knowledge. So as I learned robotics and C++, my friends taught me about Latin American politics, the Zoot Suit riots, the East LA student walkouts, even Elena Ochoa, who was the first Mexican-American woman in space, and the excitement for cheering for el equipo mexicano during the 2006 World Cup, which is why I have a flag on my little robot. It felt like I began to a world that allowed my full self to flourish. An environment filled with education, community, and authenticity. I absorbed everything around me. I had found my passions quite early. And through high school, I learned that there was a place that was effectively Disneyland for nerds, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Not kidding, it really feels like you're surrounded by nerds. And finally, the young girl from the earlier pictures had found the place that took that photo of Saturn. This is one of my favorite advertisements. I had found this while in college, and it spoke to me. Not because of the man in the photo, I didn't look like him. But I loved science fiction. And it says, when you were a kid, science fiction gave you a sense of wonder. Now you feel the same just by going to work. I knew this is where I belonged. So I set my sights on Cal Poly San Luis Obispo's aerospace engineering program, excited for the future. But the journey wasn't as easy as I expected. I started college feeling confident. I had a high school robotics team experience, an internship already lined up, and even a few college credits ahead of me. But what I didn't realize was how quickly my confidence would take a hit. Those first 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, weren't what I expected. I was surrounded by students whose dads were pilots, moms were scientists, who had their pilot's license and spent their summers at space camps or trips to NASA. It was like they were already speaking a language that I didn't know. They weren't just students, they were generational college families. And there I was trying to fit into all of that. I was one of the few women, and I was even one of the fewer women of color. It felt like I was walking into a place with people who already knew that they belonged, and I didn't. It was like everyone had a seat at the table, and I was still trying to get into the club. Have you ever walked into a Halloween costume party where you walked in as a green M&M and everybody else is dressed in regular clothes? That feeling is how I felt every single day in my classes. I was terrified to ask for help, terrified that if I did, people would see me as less capable, that I didn't belong in the first place. And then came sophomore year. I had failed an engineering class and barely passed another. That was the crash. I got placed in academic probation, and to make it worse, I lost an internship at JPL because my GPA wasn't high enough. Some might brush that off, but for me, that was devastating. It was a punch in the gut. I didn't just lose my grades, I lost the dream. I lost my confidence, I lost my path, I lost myself. And here's the thing, I know I'm not alone in feeling this way. Many of us in predominantly white institutions can face isolation. We fight to prove that we belong, but sometimes even the strongest, most resilient chingona can face isolation. And when you hit that wall, you feel like you're drowning. And this is why I want to remind you of something. Vulnerability is strength. It took me a long time to realize that. We need to teach students that asking for help isn't weakness. It's a sign of courage. It's how we build strength to keep moving forward. My first couple of years at Cat Poly wasn't what I expected. But here's the thing. I realized I didn't have to do it alone. Asking for help was the strength, and that was my turning point. So what did I do when I hit that wall? Just like our Martian rovers, when they get stuck, they go into safe mode. What that means is they basically pause and phone home for help. That's exactly what I did. I didn't know it at the time, but the place that would help me recalibrate wasn't some shiny building or high-tech facility. It was the Multicultural Engineering Center. It became my lifeline. The MEP for short was a retention initiative aimed at creating opportunities for students from underrepresented backgrounds and that were often overlooked in the predominantly white College of Engineering at Cal Poly. It wasn't just a program, it was a community, a network of support that students build the connections and resources that they needed to thrive academically. It was a place where I could just be, no mask, no pretending. It was a space that understood me, and I didn't need to justify my existence as a Latina in aerospace. There, I found people who didn't just share my background, but also shared my struggles. I also remember there was this guy who drove a loud blue Mustang, was a whiz in all of his engineering classes, loved AC/DC and cumbia, and yes, I ended up marrying him, but that's another story. In all seriousness, I learned that education is more than books, formulas, and exams. It's community, mentorship, and the understanding that you need a little more than technical knowledge to keep going. You need human connection. The engineers at JPL, we know how critical it is to have a safety net. We call it fault protection. This means that when you're working on a high-stakes mission, like landing on Mars, it's no different than life. You can't do it alone. You need a support system, and that's what the multicultural engineering program gave me. It was there that I realized belonging is a crucial skill. You need to feel safe, valued, and understood to push forward. Once I had that, I was able to focus. You as educators are the lifeline for your students. Every day you provide that safety net for them. You create environments where students can recalibrate and find the support that they need. Your classrooms, your programs, your spaces are the places that allow students to build the courage to ask for help and realize that they don't need to do it on their own. Through that, I even met a professor who would eventually encourage me to go to grad school, Dr. Kira Abercrombie. She's one of the best mentors that I ever had. She would notice if I didn't raise my hand up when my classmates were eagerly trying to turn on the engine that we had in one of our classes. Afterwards, she would whisper, "Don't doubt yourself, step into it." She reignited the fundamental gift that I had as a kid before all of those barriers: fearless curiosity. All it takes is one person, and she was my person. Dr. Abercrombie was the force that helped me realize that I didn't just have the right to sit at the table, I could also build my own. Sometimes students who are quiet and struggling are the ones who need the most help. By listening, sometimes even to their silence, you can peer into the world and help them realize that they have the right stuff, as we say in aerospace. I powered through my classes and surprisingly began to enjoy them. I immersed myself in space exploration. It became my only world. Looking back, I constantly reminded myself of those struggles, obstacles, and dedications required to get to this point. I had worked tirelessly for this success, fought everyday challenges, and I slowly began to believe in myself and my abilities. I went on to grad school, presented my thesis, and celebrated. I graduated with my bachelor's and master's in engineering in 2013. Thank you. Graduating felt amazing, but the journey wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who helped me along the way. I wouldn't be here without those people, without the community of folks who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Several months after graduating, I was helping out in the MEP tutoring center when I got the call. The recruiter from NASA JPL asked if I was interested in a job. Duh, of course I was. We went over the details, hung up, and I found myself standing in the fluorescently lit hallway of the MEP, tears streaming down my face. It was happening. I had made it. I survived. I reached my destination point, NASA JPL, the place that landed the 1-ton rovers on Mars, talked to spacecraft across the solar system, but most importantly, took that photo of Saturn. I felt it surreal. It was happening. Joining the aerospace community wasn't the end of the journey. It was just the beginning. It gets tougher and you have to find ways to carve your own space at the table. But by then, I had learned that I had the tools that you need to push forward, even when it's hard. One powerful tool that I didn't realize was critical was outreach, paying it forward, investing in my communities, and showing up as my authentic self. Working with students not only kept my passion ignited, but it also allowed me to see how they were connected with different aspects of myself. Whether it was wearing my Mexican jersey in the World Cup, or carrying around a whatever doesn't kill you makes you más chingona mug at work, or sharing my own mental health struggles, I saw firsthand how those moments resonated with them. Working on perseverance wasn't just about engineering, it was about understanding the bigger picture, the mission beyond the rover itself. That's when I really started thinking how my culture and background could play a role in all of this. I had to learn a different flavor of Spanish, one that spoke about rovers and astrobiology and X-ray spectrometers. Growing up, I learned Spanglish. We listened to Los Tigres del Norte, and I picked up frases del rancho during my visits to my grandfather's cotton field, and now I had to learn technical Spanish. Sometimes it was a struggle, and I had to practice for weeks. Pero ahora ya sé que yo soy una ingeniera aeroespacial que explora el universo con robots y un día vamos a traer esas muestras a Marte. I practiced that one. My story matters, but the power of Spanish unlocked a platform to reach communities and students who might have not had access otherwise. You all play a role in shaping a generation of dreamers and doers who will make history. It's not just about the work we do, it's about who we bring with us on the journey. I've come to learn that education comes in different forms. Storytelling is another. I had spent 6 years working on the Perseverance rover, and every time I'd go see my family, I'd bring the excitement or the complaints about my coworkers to my family. I even one day brought my grandmother, Nana Toñita, to a JPL open house. She had a deep love for learning, especially about the universe, and she beamed as she watched our Earth-based rovers rove around and interact with visitors. She even saw another spacecraft that was going to land on Mars. Afterwards, with tear-filled eyes, she told me a story that I'd never forget. After my grandparents arrived in the US from Mexico, they worked in the Los Angeles garment district, constantly battling the challenges of being immigrants. One day, authorities detained them. But as they were driving away, the one thing my grandmother recalled was some radio coverage of Apollo astronauts. She marveled at how surreal it was that people were on the moon exploring. I imagine that so many years later, it felt just as surreal when she visited our lab. I kept that story close to me. In February 2020, a Perseverance descended into the Martian surface, and just seconds before landing, I looked at my family via Zoom, pandemic, my parents, my husband, my grandparents, and I realized that I was standing on the shoulders of all of those who helped me along the way. And the right over there, if you guys want to give them a round of applause, my mom, my dad, my husband, and my Aunt Maria. As they cheered, my eyes welled up with tears. Nana Toñita, with a proud smile, said, "Mija, ya llegamos a Marte, somos exploradoras." We made it to Mars, we are explorers. And indeed, we were. I've come to rewrite that old ad, this time with a face I never thought I'd see. As educators, you're not just following a path laid out before you, you're helping students carve out their own. You show them that every day they don't need to fit into a pre-existing mold. They can create something new, something better. You give them the courage to take risks, embrace their unique identities, and break through whatever barriers that try to hold them back. I see the incredible impact that you have every day in education. Thank you for inspiring the next generation of innovators. After a decade in space exploration, I know none of it happens without educators who try to get their students to dream big. Your mission commanders, guiding students not just through academics, but through life. You equip them with knowledge, resilience, and creativity, skills that help them navigate challenges and shape the future. I reflect on my own journey, the uncertain young girl to an engineer exploring on Mars. None of it would have been possible without those who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That's the gift you give, the confidence to break barriers and achieve the impossible. You lift students when they stumble, teach them to seek help, and show them that uncertainty is part of growth. You're not just following a set blueprint, you're redefining education. Can you please give yourselves a round of applause? You're opening doors, you're building new possibilities. There will be setbacks and doubts, but with your support, students will keep moving forward. One day, they'll look back and see how far they've come because you helped them believe in themselves. I believe in your work. Keep showing them that their futures are limitless. Keep inspiring to reach beyond what they think is possible. And trust me, they will. Thank you for fighting the good fight, especially right now, for nurturing their confidence, curiosity, and resilience. Because of you, the next generation will dare mighty things, and most importantly, succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for sharing your impressive and inspiring story with us.